I'm here with Teresa Rodriguez, the United States Conference on AIDS. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
for having me. Thank you for having me.
Teresa has an amazing show on Univision, a news magazine show, and has come to the conference because you're a supporter of the Latino community and trying to raise awareness for the new epidemic.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about your experiences with HIV/AIDS and how it's affecting your community and perhaps your life personally.
I've been with Univision for many years. I guess I'm very equivalent of a Katie Couric or Barbara Walters. We have a 60 Minutes type show. It's called Aqui y Ahora, Here and Now. And we've covered several topics. I just interviewed a woman who was in her 50s who contracted HIV from her husband. Again, she Puerto Rican, and it's that machista society, and that you don't talk about this outside of even close family, sometimes even friends. It's taboo. He led a double life, had other girlfriends in his life, and she never questioned, and until she found out she was HIV positive. And I still had to do the interview in silhouette because her children knew, but her mother doesn't know, and her sister doesn't know. So the reason I'm here is in representation of Univision and what we've done. We've partnered with the Kaiser Family Foundation, and we have produced a series of public service announcements.
Which are wonderful.
They're wonderful, right?
Amazing,
I mean, it's amazing. It's people from all walks of life, Latinos in the United States, talking about their stories. And this is the first time. This is an incredible achievement because it's the first time that these individuals come forward and talk about their stories. And the hope is that in so doing, they will connect with people out there who don't feel alone anymore. And maybe we can start to make people aware. We can start to educate. We can start to inform so that it doesn't continue to be taboo to talk about living with AIDS. And to also talk about preventive measures and talk about how we can help people who are living. It's no longer that death sentence that people think it is because there are so many medications and advancement in treatment. Today it was particularly moving because we had a panel discussion, and we actually had a daughter, Dee, who was diagnosed 17 years ago, and at the time she was told she had cancer and she had a year to live. She's living proof that that is not the case. And her mother, who said, never in my life did I think that I would have a child with HIV. It was very moving. She cried, and I think she connected with many people in the audience. We had an excellent doctor, Dr. Carmen Zorilla, who is an OB/GYN and deals with many women who are pregnant and had no protected sex, obviously, and now, they're HIV, and their children are HIV positive.
Well, I came forward after 10 years of silence, and I can say that unequivocally, being able to talk about the disease, destigmatizing it for yourself is a really powerful thing, and it is going to require the community of people living with the disease to come forward to show others that they don't have to live in isolation. And the saddest thing for me is that I do meet so many Latino women in particular who have no support system. They are totally isolated, and nobody could live well or healthily, even on treatment, in that mind state. So to encourage people the way that you're doing and the way that this campaign is doing, to let them know that it is safe to come forward, that people will still love you.
And you're not alone.
And you're not alone.
And you know what? I think it's the beginning. You said that it was perhaps, that first step. Dee, who we had on today and who is one of the individuals that appears in this campaign, said this was the first step in living and accepting who I am and going forward, and it not a death sentence. On the contrary, it's a new beginning. These series of public service announcements, it's 12 total, will air beginning October 15th, National AIDS Awareness Day. Actually, not only on Univision, we have our sister networks Galavision and Telefutura. They'll also air on our radio network, and there are a total of 12, which will start to air later on throughout the year. So there will be new PSAs airing throughout the year. But it's something that we believe in firmly, because not only do we do stories in our news programs and my program, but we also feel that we have a responsibility to educate, to inform, and to hopefully be that catalyst for change, a call for action. So it's very moving, because I've gotten to meet many people living with AIDS, and I know that as a communicator and as a journalist, I have a responsibility that I take very seriously. And today, as I moderated this opening session, and we had people who are living examples from all walks of life.
Right,
soy. That's why the campaign is called Soy.
Right.
I am.
Yeah.
I am a mother. I am a sister. I am a brother.
I
am
not
a teacher.
HIV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? It affects so many people, and so many people are living with it in here, and they don't come forward. So hopefully this will help them continue to live openly and face life with, a new challenge, but also with a new responsibility to help others and to say there is hope beyond this. There is life, and we continue to be the face and the voices for those who are living in silence.
Right. No, it's amazing. It's interesting. We have this issue, two issues, one in the media where I feel like there's AIDS fatigue and everyone's done the stories to death.
Right.
And yet there are so many stories that aren't told to be done. And so as a journalist, as a fellow journalist, it makes me so happy to know that Univision is doing such a great job with it. But the other thing is this double-edged sword of the messaging. On the one hand, we want people who are HIV positive to know that you can live a long and healthy life.
Right.
We want people to come forward and get tested and not be afraid, so that if they are positive, they can get care and treatment and survive. But we also want to do a better job convincing people who are not yet HIV positive that it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody, and so that they don't go out and that they change their behavior so that they don't get HIV.
One thing I learned about not only is going out there and getting, saying I want that HIV test, but in the case of Dee, the young lady actually contracted the virus from her fiance.
Yeah.
And he would tell her, I'm fine, I'm fine, I have nothing, I have no AIDS, no HIV. And then she finds out that he did, and she trusted him. And I don't know if it's just Latinas or it's women in general. Sometimes we just take things for granted. Oh no, the guy told me that it's fine. I can trust him. I can believe him. Well, he lied. Well, and not only did he infect her, he later infected someone else. They broke up. He infected someone else. She said, so now what I do is, number one, I have safe sex. And number two, I always ask someone, regardless of whether or not she is positive, since I always ask someone, say, have you been tested?
Right.
And so that perhaps they don't feel bad. She goes, I said, let's go together.
Yes.
Maybe that's a way to get others to feel a little better about.
Absolutely.
And it's okay. You have a right to ask.
Of course you do.
It's your body. It's your life. You have the right to ask.
Well, and I think also something that people need to understand is just asking someone whether they've been tested for HIV. I have literally done this. I've said, have you been tested for HIV? And the person said yes. And I never said, and what was the answer? Or show me the paperwork.
Right.
Because a lot of people really, either think they've been tested and they haven't. People think it's part of a general,
or they haven't been tested, but they don't even suspect they could be carriers. They have no idea.
And the bottom line is, that, this has been well proven for many, many years. There's absolutely no way of indicating whether someone's HIV positive. Right. The man who gave it to me didn't know he had it.
See?
I asked him whether or not he had been tested. He said yes, and he had not, as far as I know, had any high-risk behavior. One of the things that I think is an important message to get out to everybody is that, we believe that you can get pregnant from one act of unprotected sex. But a lot of people have a hard time believing that you can get HIV from
Isn't it interesting,
sleeping with a nice person
one time. That's a mentality, because
I
we grew up with this mentality about, got to protect, you don't want to get pregnant at 15 or 16. But, we have to drive that message out there, too, so that people know. Yeah. And something you just mentioned, you've been living with the disease with HIV for a while. There's also that misconception that you're going to look frail or thin and that was a long time ago. The medications are so different nowadays, the treatment, that no one could say, oh, what does someone living with HIV look like? So that's another taboo, another myth that we have to dispel. So I think the focus of at least this session was, number one, to inform the public, to be able to show part of the faces, the people, the real people, not just numbers, the real people behind the stories that for the first time are publicly speaking about their experience.
Which is incredible. And I think that, when you see the campaign, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to put at least part of it up on POZ.
Oh, yeah, you will, sure. It's on live, by the way, today on Univision.com.
.com, okay.
Yeah.
It's you look at these people, and I have to say, even as a person in this job, living with HIV, I watch that campaign, I'm like, she has HIV? That grandmother has HIV? It's still shocking to me, because I think even I have a preconceived notion in my head. And, of course, that's bust open every single day. Right. But I think it's a very compelling thing to see how even handily this disease will attack people.
And that's the other misconception. People I've interviewed, for our show, and they say, well, I thought it was a gay disease.
Right.
You never... so these are the reasons why we're here, because we are the ones who can communicate, who can inform, and we have a responsibility to educate.
Right.
So hopefully we are making a difference, one person at a time, but we're making a difference. I commend you for what you're doing, for speaking out, for doing this, and continuing to convey the message, because we have to be that catalyst for change. Otherwise...
Well, and thanks to you so much for being such a prominent journalist.
Pleasure and an honor.
Not afraid to talk about AIDS.
No, of course not. On the contrary, it's my duty. And especially to those Latinos out there who still have that taboo about the topic. They don't discuss it outside the family, sometimes not even with the family.
Right.
So it's in here, they're dying, but in here,
Yeah.
So there is that taboo, there are the misconceptions and the stigma. So if we can, I know it's tough because it's very difficult to try to change people's minds and misconceptions, but we have to start. If we don't begin that dialogue, we've got to take that first step.
Yeah.
So I think we're taking that first step today with the Latino community, and I hope that it's the first of many.
I do too. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.